stained glass windows, put a sign on the outside, put in heating and air conditioning. Then, everything that we took out, we did the same as making the violin. We cut till it hurt, and we only put things back that look like a first-class museum. And now we're very, very proud. But what we have ended up with is a mirror. And that mirror reflects 300 years of our history. But it also reflects the present time, because we're not just curators of the past. We are also here to tell your story. Because today is going to be tomorrow's yesterday. And it's up to us to make sure we chronicle this history as well. Tracy Beatty is our president. She carries in her bag a gossamer whip, and she does a real good job of it, and she motivates us, and we as volunteers have had a really good time reconstructing the museum. But she says to us, history doesn't just stop. It's not static, it's dynamic, it keeps going. Tonight, you are history. We want to chronicle what happens today, because we know that in 100 years, somebody's going to come into this town and ask about you and ask about life today. So that is our mission. As we sat down and decided what we were going to do with you tonight, because this is the last night of our Tricentennial week, we decided that we wanted to include that one element of every celebration that has been there for 1,000 or more years, and that was wine. So the first question we asked was, okay, if wine is going to be part of our celebration, then who can we depend on to be the purveyor of the finest wines that we can present to you? And the name kept coming up time after time after time, Joe Conforti of Tuscan Brands. So we went to Joe and asked him if he could help us choose the best wines for you for tonight. And I did want to introduce you to this man. He's been an amazing help to us, Joe Conforti. But wine has a mystique to it, and sometimes wine is shrouded in mystery. So we wanted to deconstruct that mystery and help you with a fun evening of discovering how you can really enjoy the adventure of wine. In Vino Veritas, in wine, the truth. And so we wanted you to have someone help you, guide you through a really fun evening with 3 very special wines. It's a real pleasure to introduce to you a sommelier of the highest order, Mr. Esposito. The guy is going to be guiding you through your adventure. And then finally, what we said to ourselves was, if you want us to share your story, then we want you to walk out of here feeling a little bit different than when you walked in. We want you to have some depth of thought about who you are, because you can't really share yourself with others if you don't know who you are. And there's a person who's dedicated her entire life. Her mission is to try to inform you where you came from, and to keep those traditions alive that make you who you are. Her mission is to help you find yourself, no matter what your ethnicity. So, we're going to introduce you tonight to a person who has the longest running cooking show in the history of television. Over 30 years of television. I don't like to call it a cooking show because it's so much more than that. You are part of a family tapestry. If you pull on the thread of that tapestry, you'll find that there are a lot of people that came before you that passed along traditions. And Ann Esposito is a person who tries to connect you to your family history. 30 years in the television business, but as if that's not enough, 14 books. The newest one comes out this fall. It's a gardening book. It's fantastic. And as if that's not enough, 30 years in television, 14 books. She also takes small groups to Italy every year so that people who are involved with a family from Italy have to explore the food and the wine and all the wonderful things that Italy has to offer. And as if that's not enough, she also has a foundation. And with her foundation, she gives support to young people who want to have their mission be as chefs in Italian restaurants. And as if that's not enough, she has been knighted by the President of Italy. The President of Italy knighted 160 people from around the world. Guess which person in this room was the only American knighted by the President of Italy? So I've been waiting a long time to be able to stay here. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to introduce you to the host of Ciao Italia, Ann Esposito.
Sermon here was that Ward wrote the music for Ciao Italia. Wow. So that theme music is the work of Ward Gilmore. But besides thanking Ward for inviting me tonight, I want to thank the committee that put this all together because, as you know, as I tell my husband and other people, you know, when something comes to the table, it's all finished. You look at it, it's beautiful, and you start to eat it, right? And you enjoy it. But you have no idea what went before. So I know that what went before to put this event together was a lot of work by a lot of people. So thank you very much. I don't know all your names, but thank you. And thank you all for being here, especially on a night when it's hotter than hell. And nobody really wants to cook. So. But yes, wine and food, you cannot separate those two things when you're of Italian heritage. Because wine is considered a food. It's not something that's an extension or, oh, let me think about that. I'll have a glass of wine. So you grow up with wine if you're in an Italian family. And by doing that, you learn how to respect wine. But you also learn how to respect the food. And Italian food is regional food. That's what Ciao Italia has been all about for these last 30 years. There is no such thing as Italian food. I said that on my very first program. There's no such thing as Italian food. There's only regional food. And there are 20 regions of Italy. And each one of them has their distinct way of cooking. And when people say to me, well, you know, you've been out there for 30 years, what else is there to say? There's plenty to say, because I've just scratched the surface. I could be doing this in another lifetime, because the subject of Italian regional food is so vast and varied. You would never really be able to cover it in a lifetime. But Ciao Italia started right here in New Hampshire, in Durham, at the New Hampshire Public Television Station in 1989. And here we are in 2022. We have a new series coming out this year in the fall, in October, so you can look for it on your public television station or on Create or some of the other cable networks that are out there. And in each of these series for the last 30 years, I have devoted the time and effort to showing you what these different regions of Italy do in terms of presenting their food. So I don't want to take a lot of time tonight because I know these two gentlemen have a lot to say. But what I think I would like to do is maybe take your questions at the end, if you have them. So let me extend the microphone to Mr. Conforti. And may I say a few words about Joe? Not up here. Joe Conforti.
I'm going to turn red, Mary.
No, you're not. He's just a great guy. He's a wonderful man. Not only knows his wines, he knows how to treat people. He knows how to treat his family. He's made a lot of sacrifices. And you know, my dad always told me, in life, you'll have many acquaintances, but you'll have very few friends. And that is so true. And Joe Conforti is my friend.
If you all don't mind, I'm going to put this down. Okay. I'm going to tell you why. I'm Sicilian. If you can't hear me back here, we have a problem, right? First of all, let me welcome you all and thank Lord in the town of Hampton Falls. My wife said, don't call it Hampton. They will show you up. How many years I drove through this wonderful town to get to Foss Manufacturing. But you know Foss? Yeah. Up the street. I served as an engineer there for 23 and a half years. And then I was given an opportunity. Mr. Joe Farrow, the owner of Tuscan Brands, came into the state liquor store where I was going through my apprentice process to become a master of Italian wine. And he said to me, and I quote, I'm opening up an Italian restaurant in the town of Salem. And before he even got any other words out, I said, no. I said, what are you thinking? There are already 5 there. What's going to be the catch? What's going to draw people to you? You want me, I understand that. You want my expertise, but what's going to be the draw? And you know what he said to me? He said, do you remember Nana and what Nana used to do? You know who Nana is? And there's an Italian Sicilian grandmother that made bread, that made pasta, right? You're smiling. I won't go in the room because the pasta was dry. Remember on the rack? I said, you're going to do that. Make your bread, make your pasta, make your salumi, which would be the salami. Make your own cheese, mozzarella, burrata. Yes, I promise you we'll do all that. Make me one more promise, that I get to make my own wine. Because Nandu, my grandfather, made his own wine. He says, give me 5 years and we'll do it together. He was true to his word. These are the 2 wines. Now, when I held them up, did anyone recognize these 2 wines? Probably not, because we don't sell them or serve them anywhere except property that we own. So you go to a state liquor store in New Hampshire, you're not going to find them. You go to a fine restaurant, you're not going to find them. We own it all. We sell them only in our 3 restaurants in Massachusetts and 4 restaurants in New Hampshire. We have 7 total, one of them being a mercato or market and a restaurant, the new Tuscan Village, Rockingham Park. We've all seen it, say yes. Yes. On film, Joe's looking at this. 180 acres of mixed-use residential, work, play, a lake, a school. The Marianne actually films Ciao Italia there. You have to come. Are we going to allow guests this year to see that? Come in?
Of course.
Excellent. Live audience. It is wonderful. So part of all of that, after the 6th year of opening restaurants and opening markets, he was true to his word and said, let's make wine together. I said, wonderful. Where are we going to do it? Well, remember what Marianne said about regional? Well, where are we going to go to make wine? Minnesota? We're going to go to Tuscany, the heart of Italy. Chianti Classico, Brunello, all of the beautiful regions of Tuscany. Now, what were we going to make? Chianti? Everybody makes Chianti. There are literally millions of them. So what we decided to do was make Super Tuscans. Anybody know what that is? What is a Super Tuscan? What do you think it is?
It's incredible.
A Super Tuscan basically is a wine of a typical geography, a typical Tuscan geography that normally contain 1, 2, 3, or 4 grapes. So a Super Tuscan, ours, my red, first vintage 2014, is 70% Sangiovese, Sanguine. What's Sanguine? Blood. Okay? 70% Sangiovese, 15% Cabernet Sauvignon, and 15% Syrah. By doing that, by putting in a backbone grape like Cabernet Sauvignon, it allows the wine to age. What is this good with? Sauce, steak, lamb, ossobuco, hearty dishes. Okay? That's why we decided to put this on the menu. A few years later, still being in Tuscany, we decided to do a Super Tuscan White. Anybody want to guess the grapes in here? Now remember, same vineyard, and I'm going to give you a little test in a minute. If you could say it back to me, I'll give you a little prize. Same vineyard. What do you think the white grapes are in Tuscany? Very obscure.
Muscat.
If you don't know, I can understand why.
Muscat?
Muscat, a little further south we would be there. But in here, yes.
Alba? No? Okay.
Vermentino and Trebbiano in a 50-50 blend. Mildly acidic, easily approachable, easy to drink. What would this go with? Seafood, shellfish, onions, pork, light salads, anything with an anchovy, things along those lines. So we got two versatile wines that are great with Italian food. I should say artisan Italian food because that's what we do. The third wine that we are making, which made Mary Ann quite happy, we're going to Sicily. Why are we going to Sicily? Because the owner and I are both from Sicily. We wanted to do something from our own country. We're going to be making Pinot Grigio in Sicily. I say, why Pinot Grigio? When someone goes to a restaurant, when someone goes to a bar, and they don't know what to order, what do they order? Pinot Grigio, exactly. It's the #1 selling wine. Okay? That's what we're going to do. We're going to do it in a warm climate. We'll go when they allow us to go again. We'll film it. We're not a bunch of Hollywood actors or rich people licking a label and putting it on a bottle. We go to the vineyard. We taste the wine. We taste the grapes. We walk the vineyard. We pick the location, and then it is produced in Italy. Okay? This wine, and if anybody can say this back to me, I will give you something special. You ready? This wine is made at Castello di Querceto in Greve, Chianti, Tuscany. Somebody do it. Come on, I want to give you something. I'll bring it down. Castello di Querceto, Castle of Querceto. How did we find this gentleman? We looked to see who were the best producers in that area at that particular time. 105 years of family business. That was #1. Then we went. We walked the vineyards with him. We walked the fields. We picked where it was going to be grown, where the Cabernet was going to be grown, where the Merlot was going to be grown, Syrah, all of that. It's history for us. We have a story to tell. So when we originally made this, and Joe said to me, he goes, well, you worked for the state of New Hampshire. They love you. Remember how they hated me to take you away? Yeah, I remember that. Why don't we sell it in the state liquor stores? 70 stores, 2 cases each. That's 140 cases gone right out the door. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. And he said, what's your reasoning behind that? Mary Ann, ask me where the Merlot is. First of all, any state employees in the room? Do you know what she said? Where is the Merlot? This is the service you get in the state liquor store. It's over there. Come on up, right there. Nothing to the fact that there are 41 Merlots over there from all over the world, oaked, unoaked, American oak, French oak, Slovenian oak, Hungarian oak. I'm going to keep going. French Burgundy, all over. That's how they sell wine. And the gentleman that hired me for 3 months, the manager of the state liquor store hired me. He goes, I'm giving you a 3-month appointment. That's it. You come October 1st, you leave December 31st when we shut the doors. No problem. I said, can't I put a little bit more of myself into it? As you can see, I love wine. Didn't I point out your shirt first thing? Wonderful. Everybody see your shirt? It says wine on it. He goes, we'll sell it no matter what. Don't worry about it. That 3 months turned into 12 and a half years. Okay? Passion. Passion is what sells product. All right? You educate it, you put it in front of somebody. First thing I do when I see Mary Ann cook is my visual, right? And the passion that this woman shows when she's cooking. In fact, I ate the best 3 weeks of my life when she was cooking in our school because there was always a little plate for me in the refrigerator. For Joe, and no one touched it. It was wonderful.
Your name was on it.
My name. But this is why I have passion. This is why I said to Joe, I'll give you 8 years, and I'm just starting 13 next week. I love what I do. Granted, I loved what I was doing as an engineer. It paid the bills, put 2 kids through college. But this is my passion. This is what I love. So I'm going to stay with it as long as I possibly can. And somebody said to me one time, this is a still wine, now you're going to make another still wine, you're going to make a Pinot Grigio. Why don't you make a Prosecco? You know what the problem with Prosecco is? Now, where do you use Prosecco? In a bar, right? Mixed drinks, every mixed drink. What did you have tonight before you were here? Prosecco. It's a toast. Every one of my classes, by the way, I teach classes, we'll go into that later on when we do a public service announcement. I have wine tastings, wine classes. What do I start everyone with before they even sit down? Prosecco. It would be my #1 selling wine. The problem is nobody wants to sell me a crop. Why? They don't have to. They sell everything they farm. And by law, they're only allowed to farm 85% of their vineyard. Because if they did 100%, the area is so vast, it would flood the market with Prosecco. It has been my search before even the white wine. I had red, went to go get it, he goes, the owner, what are we doing with Prosecco? I said, no one's selling me grapes. So before I do decide to retire, I will make a Prosecco. Before I turn it over to Guy to talk about the beautiful wines that I have chosen, he is going to talk to you about. Is there any questions about wine that you have at all? You ever walk into a store and get no answer whatsoever, or you got an answer that just baffled you? I went into one of those big box stores looking for paint. Paint, yes, house paint, wall paint. And I said to the gentleman, do you have California paint? He looked at me, you know what he said? Sir? He says, hey man, it's all made in California. First of all, amen, I'm not a hippie, all right? It's all made in California. Totally no customer service whatsoever. And I tell my guests all the time, if you get an answer like I gave Mary Ann, and I point that it's over here, run. Go to someone that you know. And I know they do a big business. I live in New Hampshire. I appreciate the $700 million that goes through those stores. Over $750 million. It helps. It helps my taxes. It helps education. But they could be doing so much more if they just gave a little bit of guest service. Not even customer service. We call people that come into our market, whether they're shoppers, diners, or in my school, guests, not customers. Okay. So, any questions before I turn it over to Guy? Somebody said they hired me to speak at UNH one time. Remember that guy? And they said, Mr. Porter, can you go 3 hours? And she burst out laughing, and the professor said, is that funny? You don't know him. Believe me, I can keep you here well past 11. All right, in all seriousness, any questions? If you run across anything that you want clarification on, I will answer it, or save it for Guy. Totally up to you. No? No bad questions. See?
One of my favorite wines from Italy, got two of them, are I love Vinsanto and I love Acito. Arnold Capri Acito. Well, I can't buy them. They're very hard to come by.
Yes.
I have to drive into Massachusetts and order it in Brookline at Chestnut Hill because the state won't bring them in. So you have to go to some place that will have them. And Acito is like liquid gold coming down the road. Why aren't they available to anybody?
Rosito, one of the 4 styles of making wine, from Amarone to Rapasso, Rosito. It is a dessert wine. Also, Vinsanto. You almost got Vinsanto tonight. I do have it. I have 7 bottles in my inventory, and guess where it's made? Castello di Querceto and Baby Chianti Tuscany. Right? We have small bottles. 500 milliliter. It is a sweet dessert wine that's served. Would you characterize it as sweet? I wouldn't.
I mean, you have a little hint of cheese with it.
Yes. Cheese, anything like that, it is beautiful. Normally, Italians would have a little bit with a biscotti, something along those lines, but I do sell it. Rosito, I would get it for you. That's a little bit harder to sell because nobody knows what it is. In fact, how many people know what Rosito is?
No, I
You don't think so, right? That's why.
You just have to taste it once.
And they will go for it, exactly. All made in smaller bottles. I remember we were walking through the vineyards of Querceto, and we walked into the barrel room. And the barrel room, probably about where reception is down the other end there. And I'm going, oh my God, what's that smell? It was the honey and the apricot coming from the Vinsanto barrels. really, it's not to the point of bottlized like the French wines, but it's close, and it's delicious. If you ever have a chance to try it, again, very small amounts, it's expensive. My 500 milliliter, I believe, is $69, but it's worth it. Normally, I sell the most of it between that Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday. A lot of the Italians like it after a meal. But come to me. I have cards here. I'll take care of you. Always the salesman. Always the salesman. Anything else? Sure.
The classification of Italian wines, is it similar to the way the French classify theirs with the different levels?
The French use AOC, Appellation Organization Control League. Italy uses 4 classifications: DOCG, Domain of Controlled Origin Guaranteed; DOC, Domain of Controlled Origin; IGT, or a wine of a typical geography; and finally, Vino da Tavola. As we classify wine, we classify food. DOP, Parmigiano Reggiano. You want that to come from Michigan? You want it to come from where it should come from. Emilia Romagna, Pecorino Romano. All of these things, they're classified. Somebody said to me, well, I can grow a San Marzano tomato in my garden. I can go get seeds. I said, you can? Wonderful. I said, where's the volcano? Unless you got volcanic soil, am I right? Unless you got volcanic soil, you're not growing an original tomato. So they fined that company a few years back and said, get it off the label. They could say the seed of a San Marzano tomato. One of the biggest differences between the French AOC and the Italian DOCG is time. The French, a cellar master. My crew, we can release the wine when we decide it's ready to be released. Italy, no. Chianti, 12 to 14 months. Chianti Classico, 16 to 18 months. Chianti Classico Reserve, 24 months. Gran Selezione could be 3 years. Brunello, 4 years. Brunello Reserve, 5 years. Barbaresco, 3 years. Barolo, 4 years. Barolo Reserve, 5 years. Why? What would happen if you drank a high acidic Barolo 1 year after the vintage? Drink it. Too strong, too acidic on the palate. The government legislates the distribution of wine by time in Italy, and God forbid you do it too early. Okay? So when you get a Chianti Classico, and there is the rooster on the label, you can guarantee that that wine has been aged the way it should be. The grapes are the consistency that they should be, with the amounts that they should be, because in the old days they used to put a lot of things in the wine they shouldn't have. Okay? They changed that. Now you have to have the right composition and age it for the proper amount of time before it's released. When we go to a Barolo tasting, Barolo comes from Piemonte in the north. They use Nebbiolo, very strong wine. We do not swallow it. All we do is swirl it around, we taste it, we get the idea of how much fruit, how much tannin there is in that wine, and we expel it. We do not want to swallow it. Italian wines have that pedigree. So out of the DOCG, and I'll leave you with this, the DOC, IGT, and Vino da Tavola, those are not quality levels. Those are designation of classification. Where do you think the most expensive Italian wines lie? DOCG at the top, 8%. DOC, 8 to about 20%. IGT, third classification, up to 70%. And finally, Vino da Tavola, table wine. Where do you think the most expensive wine comes from? What classification? I'll see any hand. First. What would you think? The top, right? Of course. DOCG, very high. Strict farming. Strict amount of grapes, strict amount of time. Not even close. IGT, Super Tuscans. Super Tuscans on my menu, a bottle like this, 750 milliliter, $1,000 for a Super Tuscan. In fact, 2 weeks after we opened, one of my servers called me. I love him. I said, I know you do, but why are you telling me this? I just sold 2. It was in 1999 before they sat to eat. Super Tuscans. What is an example of a Super Tuscan? A Sassicaia, an Ornellaia, a Guidaberto. You notice all vowels? Okay? Sassicaia is so good, the estate has its own DOCG. Super Tuscans. You won't see a necker on my wine. It's not a DOC or a DOCG. We made IGT. Why? Because Joe ran out of money? We didn't run out of money. He gave me a pretty good budget. I wanted to make something different and unique. We made Super Tuscans. If you ever get the chance, somebody said, man, what's the difference between a $10 bottle and a $100 bottle? Or a $100 bottle and $1,000? And of course, you always get $90 and $900 is the answer, right? It's true. It's all about finish. The finish of water is 0 seconds, correct? Maybe 1.5, 2 seconds. Good wine, 1 minute, 1.5 minutes. Good Brunello, phenomenal Burgundy and Bordeaux, 3 to 4 minutes of finish. It just keeps coming and coming and coming. And that's what you're paying for, the finish of the wine. Okay? If you ever get the opportunity to try one, do it. Go to a wine shop. Don't go to a restaurant, buy a $500 bottle. No. Go to a wine shop. A good wine tasting that they're having top of the line wines, you'll get to see what it's like. Okay? I warned you, 3 hours is nothing. If I had a lot behind me, you'd be sitting for a long time. Thank you for your attention. I hope you learned a little something. I can learn a lot from this man, Mr. Ann Esposito. Thank you, sir.
Well, Joe is very humble because I've learned a lot from him. He's always been a good friend and a joy to work with. And he talked about how Italians are very proud of their products and they're very specific about how they label them. It's very important that their origins and where they come from, because each area imparts its own sense of smell, taste, of aroma, now in the wine and in the food. That's why you don't get mozzarella di Buffalo in Switzerland or in Milan. You have to get it in the south. It's shipped to Milan. It's the origin. That's why I put these maps down here for all of you, because I'm steal yours for a second. Okay? The idea here is that Italy is very, very proud of each region, has its own heritage, and is very proud of the wines and the food that they make here. This is a handy little map because this gives you the main grapes that grow well in each of these regions, and those are the ones that regions have chosen from time immemorial to make the special wines from. Italy is an interesting place. If there ever was a place created by God to make wine, it's Italy, because it has an ocean all around. It has mountains running right down the middle, so you have some altitude. And then those mountains all have ridges, and therefore you have valleys. And you have the ocean, breezes can come into those valleys at night to cool the wine, prevent the grapes from being cooked. So what's happened is, in Italy's history, the wines have adapted to where they're growing. So you pick a wine like Barolo, which is made from Nebbiolo grape in the north. It's way up here in what's called Piedmont. You pick that grape, you can grow it elsewhere in Italy, but you won't get a Barolo wine. These wines are very terroir, in other words, region, area, land, oriented. So what's happened in Italy is there are 500 varietals. 500 varietals. France there may be 30. And from these 500 different types of grapes, they make over 500 different types of wine. Italy and France rival each other every year in terms of how much they produce. Italy produces on a good year, will produce 3 billion gallons of wine, which transfers to 15 billion bottles of wine. These are all these different wines. Joe's talked about the classification system, which is, we could have a whole little session on just that. It's a fascinating subject. But what we're going to do tonight is we're going to look at 3 regions, 3 wines. This thing here will tell you, it's a wonderful little cheat sheet, We also have some folders that I gave you for pairing food and wine. These are the different wines will, in each region, go with certain things that you learn that goes with the regional food, because they're sort of blended. Italian wine style is this. It's mild fruit, high acid, low alcohol. Because it's not a cocktail. It's a beverage. And for the Italians, food is wine. Wine is made to be an integral part of the meal and to go with the food. So we have picked 3 different types of wine. We've got a white from the north. Sorry, from Sicily, which you know is the big island down there on the map, down in South Point. Then we have a red called Barbera, which is from the north, Piedmont. And the reason I wanted you to taste Barbera is because it's sort of like, did you ever hear that this people would say, oh, if you don't know what to get, just get a bottle of Pinot Noir because it goes with everything. Well, this wine is, you could say, quote, the Italian Pinot Noir, but it's so much more, I think. And it goes with everything. You can even drink this with fish, the gusty fish stuff, tuna, stuff like that. So that's, I want you to taste that. And the last thing is a very fruity wine from the south. It's from Puglia, which is the heel of Italy. You look on your map, and you'll see that we have a nice big heel here. And this wine is called Primitivo. And Primitivo is related to Zinfandel, although it's not genetically exactly the same. But it's believed that the Italians, when they immigrated to the United States, brought this grape. And it's something happened in California, just like, no, it's a wine is a plant, and it's a living organism. And it adapts to where it is. Well, anyway, what I want to do is share with you, help you learn a little bit more about how to appreciate wine and the wine you drink. And there's a system that all the master of wine people learn, and as they're learning to pick out wines, and eventually it's going to identify them blinded, and can identify by the region. It's a system. We're going to teach you a real simple approach that encompasses the most important things and characters about a wine. So the first thing we want to try is the white wine. Now, I need a glass of that wine, and I'll put 2 glasses. Okay, so if you leave here tonight knowing the next 5 words, you will have something that will have had a profitable evening as far as concerned. Because what you do about wine and the way you analyze wine is you think of the 5 S's of wine tasting. 5 S's of wine. Anyone have any idea what those are? Yeah? See, some of you know that. Yes. First you see, okay? Then you swirl. Then you smell. Then you sip. And the last thing you do, somebody said one day, stagger. But no. You sip. Okay. And you savor. So last thing is after you sip. But so let's talk about this. Okay, this wine. Okay, so we see. What do we see? Yep, what do you see? What color do you think this is?
Straw.
Pale straw. Yes. It's not golden. It's not deep yellow. So this is not a super pale straw. This is
I'm glad I looked.
it's almost mature straw. It's not a straw that's going beyond it. So the other thing you do look when you're seeing is you look for any cloudiness in the wine, any you look for any, and no, there's better juices. You look for the look for any cloudiness. The other thing is these glasses aren't big enough, but there's something. You try to look at the edge. It can be a green, can be purple, can be deep red in the red wine. So this white wine, you're looking at clarity and color. Then you swirl. Why do you swirl? Who knows why you swirl?
Air, oxygen.
Yes, that's right. You want to mix the wine with air. And just remember this. Oxygen is the enemy of wine while it's in the bottle. You don't want any leaky corks or anything. But once the wine is uncorked, you want to mix some oxygen because that allows the esters and the flavors that have occurred during fermentation to be released. So we want to mix some oxygen. What happens when wine is made? What happens? You have grape juice, it has sugar in it, and you have yeast. And then the yeast goes to work. And it takes that sugar and changes it to alcohol. And it also works on the juices and the skins in red wines. And it produces all kinds of antioxidant compounds and phenolic compounds, which give it all kinds of different smells and flavors. So what you do by circulating is get those flavors out into the air. So you swirl, then you smell. And what you're doing, you're smelling what the yeast has done, the yeast and the grape juice have done together. You're smelling the different aromatics that come out of the wine. So we'll swirl these and then see if you smell anything.
Citrus.
What do you smell? You think it's hard with these small glasses?
Minerality.
Sorry?
Minerality.
Well, that's more of a taste. It's something you taste. You know, some people may feel. You may smell some saltiness. So anyway, particularly when you look at a white wine, there's certain things that should run through your head. In this wine, what you taste, you can smell. It gets some hint of peaches and of and you get some smell peaches and also some citrus. It's real hard to do this with these little glasses. You know, so you smell. Smell is the big part. The big part is the taste. That's where you're really going to feel the flavors. When you taste, when you sip. What you got, there's two ways to sip. There's two steps to sipping. And this is the key to really deconstructing the wine that you've got. When you first sip, you put a little bit in your mouth and you chew it. You chew it. And what you look for is what that wine does to the size of your tongue and to the size of your mouth. A white wine, you'll notice acid on the side of the tongue. If your tongue gets puckery or if you start to salivate, that means it's a high acid wine. If you don't salivate much, then it's a lower acid wine. The real good food wines, and Italian white wines in general, are high acid wines. Because that's what really goes with Italian cuisine. So the second thing is, we'll talk about this when we taste the red, is the sides of your mouth will get very, very dry, astringent, and that's tannin in the wine that comes from the red wine skins. So let's chew on this. What are you noticing on the sides of your tongue? Salivating?
Yep.
That's what acid does. See, so I hope you go home and the next time you have a drink of white wine, you try this. You chew on it and you see how much acid is in it. See where we're breaking the wine down. Now the second step is you're going to put a little bit in your mouth and you're going to put it under your tongue and you're going to suck air through your teeth and then swallow it. Because really, when you're tasting a wine, you don't taste the wine, you smell a wine. When you aerosol it,
where the olfactory receptors are that give you the smell and the taste. And that now, I caution you, when you do this, be careful because you're going to wind up choking. It happens to me many a time. Just take a little bit and suck a little bit of air, and let's see what kind of flavors we get. Okay. What do you think's in this one? Okay.
Citrus is kind of tart.
Citrus and what?
It's tart. It just goes down. It's kind of a little bitter. It's like tart.
Yeah.
It goes down.
Okay. And does anybody get any peach flavors? Is this wine, if we had the right glasses and a little bit more time and to swallow it and chew on it, this is like peaches, white, fleshy fruit. Sometimes you get some hairs. This is the Catarratto grape. This is from Sicily. This is the #1 grape in Sicily. It's a great food wine. It's moderately priced, and it's becoming a big hot thing now in wines. Sicilian wines are, and the Italian wine sales are real hot. It's high quality, relatively inexpensive, always fairly priced, and very enjoyable wine. So this is Catarratto. So, all right. When you approach a wine, what are the 5 S's? You
See, smell, swirl.
sip. Sip how many times? Twice. The first for the mouthfeel, the second for the flavors. And then the last thing you do. Okay. So let's go to the red wines. Yes. This wine should be chilled. But you still get the taste of it. You each have 2 red wines. One of your red wines has a little sticker on it to delineate it from the other one that ain't got no sticker.
Which one first?
The one we're going to taste first is the non-stickered wine. This is a great wine. Okay, this wine is a great wine. This grape is a great grape, and it makes great wine. Okay. This is Barbera. This wine comes from the northwest corner of Italy, the Piedmont. If you look, you'll see it listed in the little square box on your map as one of the grapes that they grow in the Piedmont, along with the Rolo Barbaresco. Everybody can see that. I just point that out to get a sense of these maps. Incidentally, if you don't have enough copies of these maps, you can go online and get this one. If you just copy the email address in the bottom left-hand corner. Okay, so we're talking about Barbera. This is made by Vino, which is one of the top producers in Italy of red wine, period, and white wine. It's an American company. It's owned by Americans, and they created a big scandal 40 years ago when they bought in 1980. They bought 4,000 acres in the middle of the southern part of Tuscany. And the Italians went crazy and they passed a law that would never let any foreign person hold more than 40 acres. So they bought prime vineyards, and they were growing all kinds of different grapes. And they're generally good buys. In fact, several of their wines were in the 90 range in Wine Spectator recently. These are the wines that are IGT and are $10, $15 a bottle. Really good wine. But anyway, this wine is interesting. You see how dense and dark it looks? All right, keep that in mind. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look
So what do you see? You see it's really, really dark. You can't see through that. Okay. When you see that, usually that means that this wine has got a lot of guts to it, and it's a heavy wine. So now you swirl it, get a little air in it, and then while you're swirling, I want to point out on the side of the glass, you see these little running things? Okay.
Legs.
Those are called the legs, that's right. And what do the legs mean? What are the legs?
Sugar content.
Sorry?
Sugar content.
Sugar?
Capillary
Glycerin.
attraction.
Or glycerin. Glycerin and the alcohol. And they have the slower they go, the more glycerin, the more alcohol. The faster, the thinner they are. It's hard to tell what these are. These little things. I would give these a medium to fast. So, okay, so we see that now we're gonna smell. Shake it up, smell it. Smell anything?
Yeah, nice.
What do you smell?
Smells jammy.
Jam?
Spice.
Do you smell any berries, any red fruits? Okay, let's do the mouthfeel test. Now let's do it first. Take a little bit and really chew on it, and then swallow it. What do you notice?
It's up into your nose.
Yeah, well, what's happening on the sides of your tongue and in your mouth? Are you salivating? On the side of your tongue, what's happening? You're getting a lot of my tongue's still salivating. It's salivating. So that tells you that this wine has a lot of acid. Okay. That's what Barbera is. Barbera is high acid wine. That's what makes it blend so well with so many things. The other thing you noticed was you said the sides of your cheeks, the inside of your mouth felt sticky, astringent, like there's sticky bit. That's tannin. But this wine is a very low tannin wine. We have to have 4 or 5 different wines and then you can compare. This is low tannin. So this wine is, because of that, it goes with just about anything. The low tannins and the high acid, it blends. And it has, its real charm is it has a nice flavor. Let's suck it over there for our teeth. Okay, now what are you tasting?
Fruits.
Raspberry. Somebody said raspberry over here. Raspberry. She's got a good tell. Raspberries, strawberries. You get some sweet cherries and some dark red cherries. Those are the key. So this is a nice. And does it taste as heavy as it looks?
No.
Yeah. This is a light wine, but it doesn't look like a light wine. But it has all the taste profile for a wine that goes with all kinds of food. If you get invited someplace, bring a bottle of this, and whatever they serve, you'll go with it. And you tell them if they don't serve it, you tell them, look, you can drink this with anything. This goes great with pasta, red sauce. It goes good with meats, steak, veal, lamb. So this will go with fish and chicken too. So, all right. So we just
Cheese?
figured out that this is we'll go with the cheese too. So the key here is Barbera. It's the word you got to remember. They're in Barbera. The other thing you gotta remember is when you're drinking a white wine, through your head should go, is there some citrus flavors in here? And are there white fruit flavors? When you taste a red wine, what should go through your head? Berries, and then red fruit. Okay, so now we're going to try the last one. The wine with the sticker. Let's look at this one. Does it look dark and brooding? This looks like a port. This wine looks like a port. And we swirl it. You see the legs. The legs are good legs. It means there's a lot of glycerol and some significant alcohol. Now we're gonna. The next thing we'll do is see if it's smelling.
Can't swallow it.
Smell anything? Anybody smell anything? Don't be bashful, we're all learning here. I learned something.
Turn
every
your
day.
plums, dried plums.
Plums?
There's a plum
Yeah.
flavor to this. And some blueberry. Okay, now it takes a long time to develop some of these tastes. Okay, so don't feel bad. The idea here, though, is I want to teach you a system so that every time you open a bottle of wine or you're out and someone pours you a glass of wine, you do this drill, but you do it just sort of casually, on your first sip, you take it and you chew it, and sip it. And you think about it for a second or two, and then the rest of the evening you enjoy the wine. So let's take a sip of this one. Let's do the mouthful, do the chew it. Okay, Gabe. What do you think of this? It's much stronger. It's different. How much acid is in this one?
It doesn't seem as acidic.
Lots of acid, right? And what about the sides of your mouth? They're getting stuck. Yeah. There's a fair amount of tannin. Not tremendously high, but more than the other. Well, let's chew it again. I need a napkin. Thank you. I'm beginning to stay. So now let's see what flavors we can get out of this. Flavors of fermentation, reaction between the yeast and the grapes and the skins and the juice.
Have some water. Wait. No.
It's fruity, it has a little bit of sweetness.
It's lots of fruit, lots of fruit. It's hard not to like this one because of the fruits. It's the plums and the blueberries, a little bit of blackberry in here too. Sometimes people get vanilla and chocolate. This wine. So, yes. This wine is Primitivo. From where? This is from Puglia. This is from the heel of Italy. So, Primitivo. This is Mary Ann's favorite wine. She loves it. You could spend weeks just learning about this wine in different rivers and different regions within Puglia. So, okay, what I want you to leave here with, I hope, is what the 5 S's are. You know the drill to do every time you taste a new wine. It takes a few seconds. When you drink a white wine, what do you think about in terms of what you're going to taste? You're going to taste what? Citrus and
Light colored
peachy
fruit.
fruit. peach type fruit, white, yellow, white fruit. Okay, when you taste the red wine, you can think about how much acid and how much tannin is in it. Tannins coming from the skin, and you're going to think about what type of fruit are you putting in your skin, and you're going to think about what type of fruit are you putting in here. When you think of all the different types of berries, when you think of all the different red fruits. Any questions?
That's great.
Question. Sure. You mentioned the soil, climate, salt air, the valleys, and the wine is great itself. How much impact does the barrel have on the flavor?
Okay, Barbera is not put in oak. The simple ones. There's been a revival recently, and Barbera has always thought it was like the Chevrolet of Piedmontese wines in that area, because Barolo and Barbaresco, those, if you've never heard those are called the king and queen of Italian wine. So this poor guy's been the Chevrolet for a while. But they decided again about 20 years ago to put some of this in oak. And it becomes a totally different wine because it picks up tannins from the barrel. That's what you're getting out of it. That's what barrel aging means. It's tannins and vanilla flavor. Did that answer your question? Any other questions?
Yeah. Sir,
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
oak comes in many different flavors, let's say. Where does the Italian oak come from? Or is there?
They use a lot of French and Croatian. Joe? Yeah. What about Italian?
You asked a question about oak. Well, there are many different types of oak.
Yeah.
The American oak being a tighter stain. We use French oak in Italy to make this wine. But the thing with our French oak, it's already 2 years old. So what happens after 1 year, it gives up a little bit. The second year, it gives up a little more. Because we didn't want to produce an oak wine. Meaning we wanted to give you the flavors of the wine, the berry, beautiful black currant. So our oak is 2 years old, and we also keep it only for 4.5 months. So the longer you keep it in the barrel, even though it is used oak, it's still going to impart a lot of flavor. There is a lot to making wine. We designate how long we're going to use it, what barrels we're going to use, but majority of Italian wines we use French.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Any other questions?
Different kinds of French oak, isn't
Not as many as we have here.
Barbera d'Asti is the more elegant, feminine, graceful of the two among the aficionados. Okay. Barbera d'Alba is more gutsy, more brutish, strong, more masculine, so to speak. And that's how they categorize it.
I have a question.
Yes?
Do you reuse the barrels after they've been fermented?
Yeah, there's some, yes, they keep using the barrels. For some wines they use them multiple times, other wines after 1 or 2 times it's passed on. I was in Scotland last month, and we went to a distillery, and they served me scotch. They're now making scotch in bourbon barrels, sherry barrels, and wine barrels. And they're aging the whiskey in those different barrels to get different effects. And it does make a difference. And a lot of it depends on the grape, what you're trying to achieve, what region you're in, the winemaking history of that area. Yes?
You go through the 5 S's. You smell it, you savor it. So now you're drinking. What's the proper way of drinking the wine after you know the beginning? You just Did you just swallow it? Or?
Enjoy it. You don't have to think so hard about it. Too much analysis leads to paralysis. You don't want to do that. You want to just enjoy it. Like I said, the first few sips you want to do is grill. Because what happens is then you build up your own personal little library of wine tips. And your ability, your palate expands, and your ability to enjoy the wine gets better. Nothing comes without effort. Yes.
How do you know which wines to serve best chilled, whatever best served chilled, and which are better?
Well, in general, white should be served chilled. Okay, but not too cold. We're talking, anywhere from 45, 55, 50 degrees is the average. You don't want to make it too cold because that's a trick. I shouldn't be saying this. If you have a cheap bottle of wine, white wine, you make it real cold. It tastes better.
Well, I used to
Even a less expensive bottle of red, if you put a little bit of a chill on there. Normally it should be served 65 to 70 degrees, cellar temperature. If you sneak down 60 or so, you can sneak a lower price wine by somebody. I'm not joking, but somebody who enjoys wine and doesn't know about it. Also, it makes it more pleasant. Anything else? Any other questions? Yes.
How long do you recommend storing red wine in a wine fridge before it's
Oh, it never lasts that long in our house. It depends on the wine. Depends on where the wine's from. If you have a Barolo, you can store that in a wine cellar or a wine. You can store that for 30 years if it's a good one. Even the lesser crude.
That's not the right answer.
Well, one of my partners retired, and we gave him a case of Italian wines. And I helped him load it into the car after the party. And he stands there and he puts it in the trunk and he turns around and looks at me. He says, "This isn't the kind of wine you gotta wait because I don't have that much time." He wasn't that old either. He's very, very clever. He always quick with it.
How are a warming climate or droughts in Europe right now affecting the wine industry?
Oh, it's going to be a real problem. They're now growing wine and making wine in England.
Yeah.
And it's France, many of the vineyards several years ago didn't make any wine. Because it was just shriveled up.
I'll be back.
The other thing that's happening is the terrible fires in California. 2019 is smoked out. They make the wine and it tastes like smoke. Yeah, so a lot of wineries lost their whole crop. So the climate change is going to really change what we have available to enjoy. And wine's going to go further north and further south rather than further in the next 20 years. Yes. Well, I don't know, but they're number one and number two. It's similar. They're number one and number two. Every year they flip-flop. More wine. Well, France has been hurt by the climate changes much more than Italy has. Italy has much more than us. Any other questions? Was this helpful? Yes.
people that you see who are, the wonderful souls that you see who are wearing Ciao Italian aprons are all volunteers for the Historical Society. Before we have Marianne give you a lovely moment and have a question and answer, the Historical Society members are going to fan out among you, and I'm going to give you a trivia question, and if any of you can answer it, and you're in the vicinity of these Historical Society members, you are going to get a Ciao Italian t-shirt. So, you can fan out among the crowd and listen for the right answer. So over here, we thought we would be very kind and helpful and help you with your holiday shopping. There are people on your list who have just about everything. And if you want something for that person that has everything, this is something they don't have, because you can have your book signed tonight by Ann Esposito. And we're very fortunate to have Daniel Chartrand here. And Daniel's from the Water Street Bookstore in Exeter, so here comes your trivia question. The question for your Ciao Italian t-shirt is, on what street in Exeter, ladies and gentlemen, Ann Esposito.
Joe and Guy, thank you. That was great. I hope you all learned something about wine. I learn something about wine every day from Guy. And yes, we do drink wine at dinner. Not every night, but we do drink wine at dinner. And I also cook with wine. Yes. So any wine that you can enjoy, that you like to drink, you can cook with. Please do not go out and buy cooking wines. Yes. They are full of sulfites, they're ghastly, and they will ruin anything that you are preparing. So any wine that you enjoy drinking, you can cook with. So now that you've been a very attentive audience, do you have any questions for me? Yes?
What about wine vinegar? Is there a good brand to buy?
Vinegar is the son of wine. Am I right there? Yeah. Vinegar is the son of wine. You want to know what a good wine vinegar is to buy?
Where do I get it?
Your market. Oh, okay. I was just going to say that, but yes, Tuscan Market. I mean, if you haven't been there yet to the store, that Joe, of course, supervises all of that. Anything, I mean, if you want to eat like an Italian, you've got to have the right ingredients. So buy the right ingredients. Even a piece of Parmigiano Reggiano is going to set you back a few bucks. But guess what? You only need a little bit to enhance a dish. So it drives me crazy when I see people buying, that cheese in a little green box. Which isn't even cheese if you start reading the label. There's sawdust in that. Do you really want to eat that? I don't think so. And as we all know, during the pandemic, it's very hard to get some of these ingredients. And now, with the import duties and the time it takes to get anything, prices have really increased, especially on cheeses and other Italian imports. But that doesn't mean that you should not use them. Because with Italian food, less is more. Less is more. A good example of that would be olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil. Now, Joe talked earlier about the scandal around San Marzano tomatoes. Well, people don't understand what a real San Marzano tomato is. If you're going to buy a can of San Marzano, it's got to say DOP right on the can. If it doesn't say DOP, it doesn't have the European Union, the little yellow round circle on it, it's not San Marzano. And I tell people that all the time. You're growing San Marzano in your garden? No, you're not. You're growing a plum tomato. It's not a San Marzano because, as Joe said, you don't have the volcano in your backyard. With the cheese, Parmigiano Reggiano, that has to come from a specific region, Emilia-Romagna. It comes from 5 specific areas in the region of Emilia-Romagna where that cheese can be made. And the name itself, Parmigiano Reggiano, is a reflection of 2 of those 5 provinces. Parma, Parmigiano, and Reggiano. Parmigiano Reggiano. 2 of the areas in the region of Emilia-Romagna where that cheese may be made. And it has to be made to certain specifications. It has to be a certain breed of cow. They have to eat certain grasses. They have to gather the milk at a certain time. It has to be made with partially skimmed milk, mixed with whole milk. It has to use rennet. It has to cook at a certain temperature. It has to be put in a brine. It has to age. All of that goes into why you have that designation of DOP, Denominazione Origine Protetta, meaning that that cheese was made under certain laws, under certain rules. And no other cheese can be made like that and be called Parmigiano Reggiano. Yes, you can go to the store and buy Parmesan cheese, but it's not Parmigiano Reggiano. With extra virgin olive oil, for 30 years I've been talking about extra virgin olive oil, and people still don't understand it. First of all, extra virgin means that the oil coming from the olive has to come from the very first pressing. The very first pressing of the olive. And when they press olives, they press everything. The pit, the olive, even the twigs. Everything gets pressed. And no heat may be used to extract that oil, because heat is the enemy of olive oil. Heat and light is the enemy of extra virgin olive oil. So, can you cook with extra virgin olive oil? Well, yes and no. If you were doing a light saute, that's fine, because you won't ruin the oil, the taste of the oil. But most extra virgin olive oils are finishing oil. In other words, you're going to have a nice piece of fish. What you're going to put on that is a little drizzle of extra virgin olive oil, a squirt of lemon, salt, pepper, that's it. The quality of the ingredients determine how that's going to taste. So less is more. Use quality ingredients, and you do not need to use a lot of them. So extra virgin olive oil has to come from the very first pressing of the olives. No extra heat was used to extract the olives, to extract the oil, and it has to be less than 1% acid. So those are the 3 characteristics for extra virgin olive oil. Then there are all kinds of other oils. There's garlic oil, lemon flavored oil, herbal oils. Those are all blends. Many extra virgin olive oils come from a single cultivar. So in other words, one type of olive. There are many, many types of olives in Italy. Depending on where you are in Italy, the olive oil is going to taste much different. So if you like Sicilian olive oils, they're a little denser, they're a little spicier. You like a lighter tasting olive oil, you're going to like the olive oils from Tuscany or the Ulia in the north. So you have to train your palate, just like for these wines. You have to train your palate to decide what kind of olive oil do I like. Do I like a dense olive oil, light olive oil? Maybe you should have 2 or 3 different extra virgin olive oils in your pantry to use with different kinds of foods. So when you go to the store, how are you going to know that you are paying big bucks for a bottle of extra virgin olive oil? You're going to look to see where is the olive oil produced. If it says produced in Italy, that is not enough. Because, again, going back to the scandal thing, olives can come into Mediterranean waters where Italian ships reside, and they're making olive oil, right? So as long as the ship's in Italian water, olives can come from Tunisia, they can come from Greece, they can come from Spain. They're all coming into this ship in Italian water. So yeah, sure, produced in Italy, right? If you want a real Italian extra virgin olive oil, you've got to look on the back of the bottle.
to see where does it say this is coming from. Salerno, Sicily, it'll tell you on the back of the bottle, this oil is made from this olive. It may be a single cultivar or it could be a couple of different types of olives. But it will tell you specifically where it's coming from. Extra virgin olive oil needs to be on the bottle. Again, if it's a DOP, it's going to have those initials in addition to the European Union insignia that is on the bottle. So don't be fooled. Read the label, do your homework, and decide, I'll get 3 different bottles of olive oils coming from 3 different regions. Do a taste test and decide, well, I really prefer sliced through olive oils. Yeah.
How important is it that your 100% Italian olive oil cold pressed be organic?
How important is it to be organic?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's really critical. I really do. I think that that's what DOP is telling you too. That these olives are pressed to a certain specification. So it's not. I mean, if I came to your house and you served me an extra virgin olive oil that wasn't organic but still tasted good, I'd still like you. It depends on how fussy you are. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Does prosciutto have similar guidelines it has to follow along the San Marzano?
Yes. Yes, it does. And there are different prosciutti, plural, from different regions of Italy. So everyone is more familiar with prosciutto di Parma. That's a DOP. Prosciutto di Parma comes from where? Parma. Right. Same region that Parmigiano Reggiano cheese comes from, Emilia Romagna. This is why we call Emilia Romagna, the breadbasket of Italy, because lots of rich foods, wonderful foods, come from this region. And so Parmigiano Reggiano, prosciutto di Parma, aceto balsamico, tradizionale, the balsamic vinegar, they all come from there. But then, if you go to Tuscany, they make prosciutto too. But it isn't going to be the same, because in Emilia Romagna, prosciutto is made without any kind of additives. In other words, you have to use the hind leg of a pig, a certain breed of pig. You have to salt the ham, and you have to age it. That's all that goes into a prosciutto. Salt, air, and time. Those are the 3 specifications. There's no junk added to the prosciutto. And in Emilia Romagna, the pigs are different than they are in Tuscany. So the prosciutto is going to be different. In Tuscany, the prosciutto is a darker pink color. In Emilia Romagna, it's a light pink color. The velvet on the tongue has a nice line of white fat around the outside. I remember once when I was on a cooking show, it was a healthy eating show, and the host was a medical journalist. She was also the host of the show. So she invited me to come on the show and said, I want you to do something really, really simple. Really simple. So I decided that I was going to do something with prosciutto. So there I am, backstage, getting everything ready, right? And she comes out, she says, Mary Ann, you're going to have to cut all that white fat off. And I said, no, I mean, that's part of the ham. If any Italian is watching this show, they would absolutely hang me, because you would never do that. You want that line of white fat there, because it's a part of the taste. So, and it's a healthy product as well, And again, prosciutto di Parma, like all prosciutti, are sliced very, very thin. It's not like you're getting a chunk of bologna at the delicatessen. So, yes. So the prosciutti have that designation.
Is it aged a specific amount of time?
Yes. It is aged a specific amount of time. It's air dried. And in Emilia Romagna, the thing about the prosciutto there is that it's the air that comes in to help dry these prosciutti. In the past, they would have these open shutters, and the air would enter into the area where they were curing. Now today, this is all mechanized. This is all changed. You can go online and watch this on a show I did in Emilia Romagna with the prosciutto maker to see what they do now. Everything is in these glass encased the rooms and the air is controlled by temperature controls and all of that. But yes, they have to be aged at least 12 months. And then the prosciutto maker takes a neutral type bone, usually a horse bone, and he sticks it right into the prosciutto. He takes the bone out and smells it. And he can tell from years and years of experience, it has the right smell, it doesn't have the right smell. And he'll know that that ham is then stamped from where it came from, the factory that did it, the year that it was done. All of that is on the prosciutto. And if you look on a wheel of Parmigiano Reggiano, you'll find that same thing. Where did it come from? What year was it made? It has the seal of the consortio, so that you know. Because in the case of cheeses, spring cheeses taste a lot different than fall cheeses because they're eating different things at different times of the year.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Yes, sir.
You haven't mentioned any rosé wine. Are there any Italian rosé?
Rosé wines, yes.
Many now. 10 years ago, I had 2 in my store. Now I have 2 shelves full. Because you can make... No. I'd rather object. You can make rosé with anything. And one of the 2 famous grapes they make rosé with is Cabernet Sauvignon, which is white. As dark as my color. Okay? So how do they do it? I'll give you an example.
They take
I'll give you an example so you can understand this. Friday night, I decide to make myself a cup of tea. Boil water, put a tea bag in, dunk, dunk, dunk. I drink it. What color is the tea?
tan.
Pretty light, right? Next Friday night, Mary Ann calls me. The tea bag in the tea, 15 minutes go by. What color's the tea then? Dark. Same thing with making rosé. You can use any grape. Normally, no oak whatsoever, but it's all about skin contact. We have a wine in the store right now, 11-minute rosé. What does it refer to? The amount of time that the free-run juice stayed with the skins. That's it. It's all about skin contact.
So you have to have a red skin, obviously.
Yes. You would make it with a Merlot, a Cabernet, a Pinot Noir, anything that has a red skin. Because that's where the color comes from, the tannin comes from. And rosés right now, they're starting to pick back up again. Italy does them very well from the north, Tuscany also, and of course Provence in France. Cannot forget. They do it very well. Sir?
Joe, I have a question for you. You've heard the theory, what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
Okay, what comes first, food or wine?
Wow. I would have to go to battle with my mentor. Right?
You can't have one without the other.
That's right. You really can't.
Love and marriage.
I have an embarrassing question.
Sure.
You won't make fun
Is this
of me,
for a
right?
guy?
Well, no, it's for you, but it could be, it probably happened to a number of them, but they won't admit it. So, Sunday, of course, Sunday dinner is big for me, and I'm cooking, and there was no one in the house, just my wife and Joey. And I made some veal. I used the jicai. I did my egg mixture. I did the flour mixture. I did the breadcrumbs. Beautiful saute. Drained them like you showed me. Went to cut Elizabeth. What do you think happened?
It's tough.
It delaminated.
Oh,
The
yes.
breading came right off the meat. What did I do wrong?
What you did wrong is that you...
First of all, did it ever happen to anyone? Thank you. And listen,
Oh, yeah, it
listen.
happens. Listen, I mean, it happened to me. What I learned, though, this is part of cooking. What I learned is, after you have breadcrumbed it, you want to lay those cutlets on like a baking sheet and stick them in the refrigerator uncovered.
That's what I didn't do.
Uncovered, you chill it. So now that has time to kind of adhere to the egg.
Do you
So-
mix cornstarch with the flour?
No.
Straight flour.
Yeah, no, you do your flour, then you do your egg, then you do your breadcrumbs.
How long in the fridge?
Overnight?
Way off.
Right, way off.
All right. Thank you.
And the oil has to be very hot.
It was. How do I test it? Get a piece of bread,
Yeah.
plop it in, and I watch. I learn. I watch her shows. I learn. Right? And it came as soon as I went through with the cut.
Yeah,
Ready.
no. But if you do that, just put it in the refrigerator. I mean, it doesn't have to be overnight, it's better if it is, but at least a couple hours.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what kind of oil do you use to saute the Parmigiano?
So I would use like a sunflower oil. In fact, if you've ever traveled in Italy, you see fields and fields of sunflowers. And why are they there? It's not just a pretty picture. I mean, it's there because they use the seeds to make oil for frying. I mean, you would never deep fry with olive oil. First of all, think of how heavy something would taste if you did that. Secondly, it'd be very expensive to do that.
Well, not extra virgin olive oil.
Any olive. You want,
Any olive
it
oil.
depends on, do you want an olive taste to the donuts you're making or whatever it is? And I think you have to pay attention to what is the flavor that you're at. Expensive to do that.
Well, not extra virgin olive oil.
Any olive. You want,
Any olive
it
oil.
depends on, do you want an olive taste to the donuts you're making or whatever it is? And I think you have to pay attention to what is the flavor that you're after. So as I told you, extra virgin olive oil is really a finishing oil.
Right.
For salads, drizzling on meats, fish.
But it's very healthy for you.
It is very healthy for you, and you don't need a lot of it. As I said, you will destroy the flavor of extra virgin olive oil.
So they don't have an olive oil that isn't extra virgin?
Oh, sure they do. There's all kinds of imitations out there. One of the things that most people buy is something called pomace, right, Joe? Pomace? Pomace is the dregs. That's what happens after they press the olives 1, 2, 3 times.
Okay.
Then they press them again with solvents.
Oh.
Yeah. And then they'll sell them in these gallon tins, $5.95. Wow, what a deal! Olive oil. No, you're drinking. You're cooking with solvents. No, look. You may pay a little bit more for a good product, but it's cheaper than chemotherapy. That's what I and I'm not joking. Yeah. So eat good things. Eat good things. Anything else? Over there. Yes. Yes, sir.
I have a question. We're going to be making pesto from our home garden.
Oh, good.
With pesto,
Yeah.
let's get some of that.
Yeah.
What would you recommend with the pasta, the wine, and are you pro pine nuts and cracking over the pasta, or is it with the sauce, and what about the cheese?
Oh, wow, that's a loaded question. Let's go back to pesto first. So, pesto is peculiar to Liguria. That's where pesto sauce was formed, in northern Italy. There they have wonderful basil farms. And if you want to make pesto sauce correctly, I talk about this in my new book that's coming in the fall. But if you want to make it correctly, you got to do it the way the Ligurians do it. First of all, you have to use the smallest leaves on the basil plant. I'll tell you why in a minute. Then you have to have good coarse salt. You need extra virgin olive oil because this is a cold sauce.
Okay, gotcha. I can do that.
And you need garlic. Why do you want to use the smallest leaves? Because don't even try doing this in a food processor. You got to do this in a mortar and a pestle. This is the correct way to do it. I know what everyone's thinking. Oh, is she kidding me? Who has that? Mortar and pestle. Yeah, it requires a little bit of arm action. But this is where the word pesto comes from. Pestare, to pound down. So the pestle is what you're pounding with in the marble bowl. And you need the salt as an abrasive to help you break down the leaves. You want to use the smallest leaves because you don't want to bruise them that much. So if you started with the jumbo leaves, you'd be there forever. And if you really, really wanted to be like the Ligurians, you would take the center vein of the leaf of the basil out. So you take out that little center vein. So now you got all that, right? Okay, so, and then you drizzle in with olive oil little by little. You can use pine nuts or walnuts as part of the pesto. Now, traditionally, that is served on something called trenette. Trenette is a pasta. Think of it like fettuccine, similar to fettuccine. And so that would be the pasta that I use. Also, you need the Parmigiano Reggiano in the sauce as well. That you now store in jars in the refrigerator. You put a
extra virgin olive oil. Seal the opening. You don't want any air in there. Because if you allow air in there, what's going to happen? It's going to turn brown.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, because once it's exposed to air like that, it will turn brown. So, what to do? What to do is, now you're going in the refrigerator because you want some of that pesto, right? And you take your spoon and you scoop in there, so now you've taken out some of the oil. But all is not lost, because what you do is just smooth over the remaining pesto, put another layer of olive oil over the top, cap the jar, back in the refrigerator, it goes. A lot of people like to freeze pesto. I don't like to freeze pesto. I just don't think it tastes the same.
Okay.
So, the best time to enjoy that is now, summer months. Now, what I do, or what I should say Guy Tom does, because do you know how much pesto is in our garden? Enough for the whole neighborhood and then some. You take the leaves, and you put the whole leaves, bigger ones, in little sandwich bags, then you put in the freezer. Now, those you can't use for pesto, but you can use them to put in sauce or soups or stews. They are going to turn color. There's no question about that. One of the older methods of preserving basil leaves is to do it with salt, because salt is one of 3 ancient preservatives. The other 2 being vinegar and
Oil, yes.
Okay. So you take the leaves, you put them in a plastic bag, or you put them in a jar, or layer them with salt. So lay down some salt, a few leaves of basil, more salt, continue going, end with salt, put it in the refrigerator, take out the leaves as you need them. They're not going to be beautifully green, but they'll be tasty. Does that answer your question?
What was the pasta you said?
Penne.
Oh, it's like a kind of.
It's like the yeah, and you probably can find it, right? You have penne thing down here? All kinds of pastas. And on the subject of pasta, you want to make sure that you're using a good pasta. I personally think that homemade pasta, there's just no equal to it. But that doesn't mean to say that there isn't great pastas that you can buy from Italy. In fact, Joe, I was just down in Salem the other day, and I bought those giant shells that I'm going to stuff. Now, when you look at pasta in the grocery store, it's like this yellow color, right? Yellow color. When you look at bronze extruded pasta, it's pale. It's pale, what would you say? Like it's just a pale color, and it's got a rough surface. That's because those pastas were extruded through bronze-cut dyes, as opposed to a lot of commercially prepared regular pastas like pastine and some of the others. I'm not saying they're good, but they're extruded through Teflon-type machines, and they're slippery. But a bronze dye pasta is what you want if you want the sauce to cling to the pasta and not be in the bottom of the bowl. Because that's a no-no. Got it? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do you remember at the beginning I told you that we had recreated the museum and that we are essentially a mirror for the past, and we're also reflecting on the present, but we're also concerned with the future. We in the Historical Society want to have an impact on the next generation. So, Marion, if I could borrow you one time, and Guy and Joe, I'll use you to assist me, and I also want to introduce you, if you don't know her, to Tracy Beatty, the president of the Historical Society. Would you give us just a brief overview of the foundation?
Sure. My mom always told me that you need to give back. Don't forget the people who put you where you are. And I've never forgotten those words. And so a few years ago, I established the Ann Esposito Foundation, which is a foundation to help students who are culinary degree students achieve their goals.
of becoming the next generation of chefs. And in addition to creating a digital library where Italian regional recipes will reside forever, those types of recipes that will be lost to time. Because as we all know, as time goes on, people change, cooking changes, memories change, and so these recipes will always be preserved through this digital library. And so we've helped a lot of students realize their culinary dreams, and I would love it if you would support the foundation any way you can. You can learn about it on our website, and I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity just to say a few words about the foundation.
Tracy has a few words for you.
And on behalf of the Historical Society of Hampton Hall, I want you to know it is a privilege with us this evening. It's a privilege to have you with us this evening. Our trustees and our membership are donating $500 towards your foundation.
Thank you so much.
Marianne is going to be over here at the signing table. While she's going there, I want to tell you about your lovely parting gifts that we have for you. These are mementos that we want you to take with you tonight to remember this wonderful evening and to help remind you about the week that we've gone through tonight. Before I show you your gifts, I just want to remind you that tomorrow are the Clydesdales. Clydesdales are at 12 o'clock. So they are arriving in 3 gigantic trucks, and they will unload on Parsonage Road, and they'll proceed down Drinkwater. And you're welcome to join them on Drinkwater and follow the horses. We have Route 88 closed. They'll pause briefly here at Town Hall for photographs, and then they'll proceed down 88 to the Town Common. If you want to get photographs of them up close and personal, they will be parked briefly on the Lincoln Ackerman side of the common. Then when the driver feels that they've had enough, he's going to circle them around the common and they're going to exit through the Baptist church. So again, the Clydesdales will be here at 12 o'clock coming down Drinkwater, so you can join them at any point along the way. The road is closed and you're welcome to enjoy this really once-in-a-lifetime experience. 4 o'clock tomorrow in Exeter at the Czar's Brewery is the Falls 4 o'clock Flagon Fest. The Czar's Brewery is throwing us a little party. Those of us who have organized, those of us who have enjoyed the week, you have 2 choices. When you get there at 4 o'clock, you can either choose to have an head, or you can choose to honor our president and have These are your lovely party gifts. And Joe chose them for you. Joe, could you remind them of what they're receiving? They're receiving a red and a white.
So it's based on what they chose. Also, you're going to get a 10% off coupon. And again, these wines are only sold in Tuscan Market in Salem and the small market we opened up in Portsmouth in Market Square. Toscana Rosso, Toscana Bianco. So what I'm going to do right now is something I didn't plan on doing. On the way up here, I said, this gentleman, how long have we been working now together? Back and forth, emails, phone calls. I am going to present him on behalf of myself and Tuscan Brands these 2 bottles of wine. Thank you all for your attention this evening. I hope you learned a little bit of something.
You are welcome to do 2 things. Just give me 10 more seconds. 10 more seconds, please.
Listen.
10 more seconds, please. You're welcome to do 2 things. come up and get your lovely party gift, your red or your white, because whatever you don't take, we will sell for $35 with the case and the wine. So whatever you don't take, you take this for free. It is your gift on behalf of the Historical Society. But what you don't take tonight, we are going to put up here as a souvenir of the week, and you're welcome to buy it for $35 each. Marianne is over here to sign books, and Tracy has one last thing.
Just 10 seconds. Pause. I want to thank all of our trustees who have worked so hard in putting all of this together. And I want to thank this man right here, our trustee, Warren Gilmore. Weeks, so long to put this together. We really want to be a perfectionist in certain ways. And without his efforts, we would not have us gathered tonight. So I ask that you give him a good round of applause.
A businessman.